Hello and welcome to Vegetology. Today we are going to be making a delicious, moist, really big, chunky vegan chocolate cake. As vegan cakes go, this would be my go-to for a birthday cake, celebration cake. This would be my one. Okay, so I've got all the ingredients out and I'm going to take you through them as I make it, and then we're going to bake it, we're going to ice it, we're going to do everything. So let's get started. I've got my oven preheating at 160 degrees. This is a fan oven. If you're not using a fan oven, I'd probably drop it up to about 170 to 180. But if you're using a fan oven, keep it at 160, okay? This cake is gonna be made in 7-inch tins. So I've got 3 7-inch tins here that I've pre-lined. So they're lined on the side, and it's a bit tricky to see because the paper's white, but they've got baking paper on the bottom as well. But I buy pre-made cut circles, so they're quite easy to use and it's quicker for me. So I've got 3 7-inch tins there. Now the first thing we're going to do with this recipe is we want to make like a form of buttermilk, and we're going to do that by using soy milk, so just soy milk and lemon juice, and the lemon is going to make this soy milk curdle, okay? It takes a couple of minutes, so that's why we're going to do that first. So here I've got 450 ml of soy milk, and to that I'm going to put a tablespoon of lemon juice. So I'm just going to squeeze some of that and then pour it in. And in a couple of minutes we should see it start to curdle. There we go, a tablespoon, okay? Give it a little stir once you've got it in, and then you can just set that aside and that will do its thing. I'll move them away. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the rest of our wet ingredients. So I have got some sunflower oil, I've got some vanilla extract, and then it's not wet but it's an ingredient. I've got our light brown sugar. So I've already weighed out the sunflower oil. I'm using quite a big jug because we're going to add more ingredients in here, and I need to be able to get the whisk in and give it a good whisk around, okay? So in here, I've got 320 ml of just regular sunflower oil. To that, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons. I like to use actual measuring spoons instead of a teaspoon like this. I find it's really easy to put too much or too little in. So I've got my teaspoon measure here, and I'm just gonna put 2 of these in. It's really important that you make sure you buy vanilla extract and not essence. Essence is not vanilla extract, it's a flavouring, and it won't give you the depth of flavour or the delicious taste that extract will. So, side note on that. Okay, then I'm also going to add to this 500 grams, I'll just turn on my scales, 500 grams of light brown sugar. Okay, so we're down to 0. Straight in with your light brown sugar, which is going to be all of this packet. Because if I'd read the back before, it's a 500 gram packet. Okay, so I've got my 500 grams in there. Grab a little whisk and just whisk it together. I wouldn't whisk it vigorously at this point, you don't want it flying out at you. But just give it a little mix. Okay, and now to this, we're going to add some coconut yogurt. So you can either buy the pots of coconut yogurt, which are about that big, they're usually 500 ml pots, or I discovered these, they're in most big supermarkets, and they're by Apro, and they're called Deliciously Creamy Coconut, and they're like a dessert yogurt. They're a bit thicker than if you buy it in the big tub, and they're actually really, really tasty. So we need 260 ml of, I'm just going to check this, 260 grams of our yogurt. Each pot is 125 grams, so I'm adding just slightly less so I don't have to open another pot, but it's 250 grams here of coconut yogurt. So for some reason they decided to make it quite tricky to open them. Okay, so I'm going to put these both in with the rest of my wet mix. I'm just going to get a little spatula as well because I don't want to waste any. Make sure that all goes in. You can buy these in other flavours as well if you're looking for a nice alternative vegan yogurt. I think you can get them in chocolate and in butterscotch as well. I think I've seen them. And they're really nice. Okay, so both in. And then we're going to whisk this together. Now you don't want there to be too many lumps, so you do need to give it a good whisk. Okay, set that to the side. I'm going to take them off my scale if I want to anchor that down, and now just start to give it a whisk until it's all nice and evenly mixed. Make sure you get right to the bottom. Okay, so you should be left with something that looks a little bit like butterscotch sauce. Okay, that's perfect. So to this, I now want to add my soured milk. Now you can see that, but it's curdled. Can you see how lumpy now? It's almost like it's gritty. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for, okay? So we're gonna add in, hence why we're using such a big jug as well, because there's a lot of ingredients going in here and we don't want it all flying out at us. Okay, so just go gently to start to whisk this together. Try and pull up from the bottom. And once you know most of it's mixed, you can kind of go a little bit harder without the risk of it all splashing up at you. Here we go. You can do this in a bowl if you prefer to do it in a bowl. I just like the ease of being able to pick up the handle of a jug, to be honest. Okay, and if you're using a clear, you can lift it up and look underneath, check you've got it all mixed. Okay, so they are all my wet ingredients mixed and ready. I'm now going to start with my dry ingredients. So here, just tear this off to 0. In here, I have got 450 grams of self-raising flour. Onto that, I'm putting 160 grams of cocoa powder. Just get those sifted. And now we also need some raising agents. So I'm going to be using bicarbonate of soda and baking powder. And for each of these, I'm going to be using 1.5 teaspoons. So I've got a little bit, use my 1/2 teaspoon. So if I need 1.5 teaspoons, I'm going to do 3 level 1/2 teaspoons. That's of my baking powder, and 3 level 1/2 teaspoons of my bicarb. Okay. If you tap it on the side, you should be able to get it level. And then you need about 1/2 teaspoon of salt in here as well. So that'll just be a couple of grinds of salt. Now give this a little mix first, because we want to make sure that that bicarb and that baking powder are nicely mixed in. Okay, we're going to whisk our wet ingredients into our dry. So this is a lot of ingredients here. So let's just take it nice and slow. Make a little dip in the middle and just start to pour your ingredients in. You can start to whisk. If you've got someone else to hand, you can get them to hold the side of the bowl, or you can just pop your jug down for a moment, hold on, and make sure you start to whisk. And just pull in from the sides as you go. Again, take your time doing this bit. You don't want the flour and the cocoa powder mix to fly out at you. A bit more. And mix again. And this will make the most delicious, really moist, quite high. I like to have quite a good depth on my cakes. I don't like them to be really shallow. So, gosh, see that? Even though I'm being gentle, it's still just splashing out at me. So pour a whole load more in and just start to go around this. Once it's all mixed in, then I can whisk a bit more vigorously. Let's just get it all in first. It's starting to come together now. Okay, I've still got a little bit more in the jug. last bit in. It looks like a really nice kind of like caramel sauce that's going in. Though it definitely wouldn't taste like that at the moment. So let's get it all mixed in here. Okay, so I've got it all mixed in, and I've really gone round and tried to get it from the bottom as well, so that it's all incorporated. You can see how delicious it looks. So let's get our 3 7-inch tins. Now you can put scales underneath if you want and weigh each one as you go, so you've got exactly the same amount of batter in each one. I tend to do it by eye. If it was for a wedding cake, I would be weighing it, but if it's for friends and family, I do it by eye. So I'm literally just going to tip it in, roughly swipe it off, and then move on to my next tin. I'm a bit careful the first time round, and then once I can see which ones need more, I'll go back and add a bit more. Okay, and then a third one. Okay, let's have a little look. Just get a little spatula for this bit. So I don't need this whisk anymore, but I do want the batter off it. I can't stand waste. So try and get as much off as you can. And then have a little look at your tins. They kind of do level themselves out quite nicely. I think probably I'm always a little bit meaner on my first one. So we'll go back and add a little bit more to this one. And a little bit more here. I think there's probably the most in the last one. Okay. And then I'm just going to give them a little knock on the side to make sure they're all smooth on top. So these are going to go into my preheated oven that's 160 in a fan oven for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to take them out and put them onto cooling racks once they've been out of the oven about 5 minutes. When they are completely cold and they have fully cooled, it's very important that you let them fully cool, then we're going to make the buttercream, and I'm going to show you how to tear it up into a gorgeous birthday cake. So I will meet you back here in a bit. Okay, so our chocolate cake has been out of the oven now for about an hour and a half. It's nicely cooled. You can see I've turned them out onto wire racks. My hands are clean. If I flip this over for you, that's what the top looks like when it first comes out. So it's got a little crack in it there, but I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to layer them up this way. You can slice off the tops if you want to, no problem. Make them, nice and flush. I actually quite like on this leaving them on. I like it to be a really high, nice tall cake. So I've got my 3 cakes there, ready to go, and now we're going to make the buttercream. So for the buttercream, we're going to be using some vegan chocolate. This one I brought in quite a large supermarket. It's quite a nice one. They're only 85 grams, the bars though. Okay, so if you buy it thinking it's going to be 150 grams like most ones are, it's not. Okay, I've also got my vegan butter. This is such a brilliant substitute for butter. I don't know how long it's been out for when Flora brought it out. It can't be that long because I haven't seen it for years on the shelves. It has been a game changer for me in vegan baking though. I've got my icing sugar, and I've also got my vanilla extract. Remember, never essence, always extract. Okay, so I've already sifted into my bowl 400 grams of my icing sugar. To that, I'm going to add in 200 grams of my Flora vegan butter. And this is a 250 gram block. So I'm just going to, by eye, look at it and take off a fifth, around a fifth, and add in the rest. It's good to keep it at room temperature. You don't want it to be too difficult when it's mixing in. So just chop it up and pop it in. Okay, we're going to put this in a stand mixer because we want this to beat for about 5 minutes. Okay, so you could do this with your, with your own arm power if you want to. But if you've got a stand mixer, I would recommend using your stand mixer. So along with my icing sugar and butter, I'm going to put in my vanilla extract, but I'm just going to give my hands a quick wipe. So I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. There's 1, 2. If I was making a vanilla buttercream, I would put the butter in first, the vegan butter, and let that beat by itself for about 5 minutes so it was really pale and creamy. Then you can add your icing sugar. But we're making chocolate, so I'm not looking to pale it out any more than it already is because I'm going to be adding chocolate to it. Okay, I'm going to pop this under my stand mixer. Make sure you put your guard cover on. I've popped that in my stand mixer. Now, if I don't want icing sugar to flare up everywhere, I'm just going to pop a tea towel over the top and turn it on low to start with. Okay? Whilst that's mixing, I'm going to break up my chocolate and get it melted. So I'm going to do this in the microwave. Break it up first. Once this has started mixing and the icing sugar isn't going to fly everywhere, turn your mixer up. I'm going to melt this in the microwave for 20-second bursts, so I'll come back to you once I've got this melted. Okay, so this has been beating for a couple of minutes, and I'm just going to take it out and show you. There. Okay, so it's nice, light, pale and fluffy. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to scrape around the edge. There's still some on the hook on the stand machine, but I'm just going to scrape all the way around the edge and pour in my melted chocolate. Now this is milk chocolate, so if you want the buttercream to be darker, use dark chocolate. You can also add a bit of good quality cocoa powder and that will darken it as well. But I'm happy for this to be a lighter shade of chocolate. So I'm going to add that in, pop it back under my mixer, and then I'm going to put this back onto mix just for another minute. Okay, so that's been mixing now. All the chocolate is nicely incorporated. I'm just going to take the K-beater off it and bring it out to show you. Okay, so I'm going to get all of it off my mixing hook here. This is either called a K-beater, there's a few names for it, but it's the main one that you'd use in baking. It's not the whisk or the dough hook, it's always the other one. Okay, so set that to the side. I'm not going to put that in the washing bowl just yet because if I want to re-whip it at any stage, it's handy to have it there. Okay, so I'm just going to scrape all that around. In fact, I'm going to get my bigger spatula because this one was the one I used for my chocolate. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a nice final little mix. Okay, so I've got my chocolate buttercream here. Now I'm going to put this into a piping bag so I can pipe nice even layers and then do some nice little ones on top. So I will go and set this up in the piping bags. Okay, so I've got my cooled cakes, I've got a cake board and I've just popped it on a stand. Now the chocolate buttercream, these are just blue bags by the way, the buttercream has not changed colour. I've put a section of it in with a nozzle that's like a little star tube nozzle. And this is because I want to make some pretty little stars on top. And then I've put the majority of the icing in a bag with no tube at the end because this is what I'm going to fill in between the layers. Okay, so I'm just going to put a little blob on my board so that the first cake has got something just to stick on. If you just look above the cake, make sure it's fairly central and give it a little push down. You don't want to pick it up after you've spent all this time making this beautiful cake only for it to go west. So I've got my first layer there. I'm going to get my piping bag. I've twisted my piping bag so it's quite taut. In between your finger and your thumb, hold it there, okay? And then you're going to apply the pressure using your hand at the top and go around. Okay, and then you're just going to keep on doing this. I'm not worried about this being perfectly even at this point because I'm just going to take my palette knife and I'm holding onto the cake stand and the board here and just smoothing around, just gently. Okay, so that's my first one on. Don't worry about that, we're going to use it. I'm going to pop my next layer on top. Now, I'll just flip this over so you can see. If you want to slice that off so it's perfectly flat, you can. I'm not going to because it will still taste delicious. I'm going to push that one down on top. Okay? If you've got extra icing, you can always fill in a little rim around the side. And then I'm going to do my next layer. Try and go right to the edge. And then you need to keep on twisting the bag down all the way around into the middle. Okay, and then again, you can just smooth, you don't have to smooth over if you don't want to, but if you feel like, oh, I just want to get that exactly flat, you can just smooth over. There we go. Move that there. And then get my final layer and pop it on top. Now I'm not going to pipe a layer of icing all the way on the top because that's what I'm going to use this one for, okay? So instead, I'm just going to look around the cake and see if there's anywhere that I want filling in with a little bit of icing. So I'm just filling in the line where the gap is. And you'll see it as I start to bring it round now. This makes it look a bit more polished and a bit more finished. You know, if you want to make extra icing and cover the sides as well, by all means do. I'm just gonna go. Some bits need it, some bits don't. Just fill in as and where you want or need. And I'm nearly all the way around. With just the right amount of icing, which was very handy. Okay, now if you want to go around with a slightly smaller scraper and smooth it round, you can. I'm going to leave it like that, I quite like it. And then you're going to get your other piping bag. And I start, so I'm going to hold it directly down on top. I'm going to squeeze, and as I squeeze, I'm going to let it ruffle. A little bit of thread in there, so I'm going to let this ruffle. Like that. Okay, and then I would go, oh, that one's gone a little bit wonky, just pull it back, go directly opposite. So I've done 4, and this is so I know I've got even spacing, and now I'm going to fill in 2 in each gap. If you think I might be running out of icing, just make your ruffles a little bit smaller, it's no problem. If you've got a bit of icing left, you can always add in more little ruffles, or you can add in little tiny stars around if you want to, just as and where you think could do with it. And I'm going to use every bit of this icing. I'm not going to have any left. Perfect. Okay. Now if you want to, you could buy some sprinkles, pop them on top there. Or you can leave it just as is. I would put a big candle coming out the top, or put my candles in that area there. But you can buy vegan sprinkles, you know, colourful ones if it's for a kid's birthday or if you want to brighten up. But this is our vegan chocolate cake, so I really hope you have a go and enjoy doing it. And if you've got any comments, do drop them in the box below. Okay, see you again soon.